Okay, so you know those historical mysteries we all love? The ones where it's like, wait, is this myth or is this real history?
The lines get kind of blurry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we got a really interesting batch of listener questions and notes, and they all center around exactly that. I mean, these stories that grab us and don't let go, they're not just like campfire tales, right? There's something deeper there, something about cultures, about how people, understood their world, and that human need to explain the unknown.
It's so true. Like looking at what you sent over about El Dorado, King Arthur, those Greek myths, it's like they hit us on so many levels. We're not just trying to figure out, did this happen or not? It's about storytelling itself, right?
Yeah.
How societies made sense of their origins, their values, and the stuff they couldn't quite grasp.
Mm-hmm.
It's this blend of what might have been and what we as humans sort of need to believe.
Right. And that's exactly what we're doing in this deep dive, all because you guys were curious. We're picking apart some of these legends, the ones that just keep popping up, and trying to figure out why do they still hold this power over us? They get retold, reinterpreted, but there's this core, this essence that stays the same. It makes you wonder, what is it about these specific narratives? Is it like you were saying that they tap into something essential about being human, like that desire for adventure or the fascination with secrets or the need to, I don't know, impose order on the chaos around us?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the fact that these legends have stuck around for so long, it says something about how well they reflect our desires, even our anxieties. Like, take El Dorado, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't just about wanting to be rich. It was tied up in, like, the whole age of exploration, the economics, the politics, those conquistadors, the risks they took, the rewards that were often, not that great. They clung to this idea of unimaginable wealth. It became this symbol of, I guess, that era's obsession with finding new resources and the pressures that drove those expeditions.
Yeah, that's a great point. It wasn't just greed, it was this whole societal machine driven by that kind of belief. So, if we know that these myths come from a specific time and place, how do we even start to separate what might be real historical fact from the fantastical stuff that gets layered on top, like what we see with the King Arthur stuff you sent?
That's where it gets fun. It's like being a detective, right?
Yeah.
With King Arthur, it's amazing how much is potentially historical and how much has been added over centuries. Some historians looking at these fragments, accounts from way back, like the 5th, 6th centuries, they think there might have been a real Romano-British leader fighting against the Anglo-Saxons. But then, as the story went through different cultures, Welsh, Breton, oral traditions, and then the medieval romances, we get all these additions: Celtic mythology, magic objects, sorcerers, the other world. Like some scholars even see hints of old Celtic gods in Merlin or the Lady of the Lake. It's that cultural blend that makes it so interesting, how a maybe real figure becomes this legendary king.
So it's like tracing the evolution of the story itself, how it changes depending on who's telling it. You also mentioned how important these legends were to the cultures that created them. Those Greek myth articles you sent really highlighted that. They weren't just for fun, were they?
No way. I mean, they were woven into the very fabric of ancient Greek life. They explain things like, why is the sea so powerful? Poseidon, why do the seasons change? Demeter and Persephone. But it goes deeper than that. They were teaching tools, morality tales, like, justice, hubris, fate, what happens when humans mess up. Those stories about gods and heroes, they gave people a framework, helped them understand their place in the cosmos, their relationship with each other, and with the divine. It wasn't just entertainment, it was their worldview, their guide to human nature.
That's really interesting. It's like these stories weren't just stories, they were foundational to how a whole civilization understood itself and its place in the universe. So, thinking about why we're still so drawn to these stories, you mentioned their psychological power. And that Bermuda Triangle material you sent, it really made me think about that. What is it about those unsolved mysteries that just hooks us?
I think the Bermuda Triangle and things like it, they really play on how uncomfortable we are with the unknown. Like when
Mhm.
something happens and it doesn't make sense, we as humans try to find a pattern, a story, even if that story involves the supernatural or aliens or whatever. The Bermuda Triangle, with the disappearances, the weird compass stuff, it taps into our fascination with the limits of our knowledge. It makes us wonder what's out there that we can't explain, can't control. And it makes us want to solve the puzzle, even if there may not be a clear answer.
Yeah, it's like our brains are wired to find meaning, even if the facts are fuzzy, and these mysteries are just like begging for interpretation. Okay, last thing you mentioned was questioning the sources. This seems super important when we're dealing with legends that have been passed down for so long, changing with every retelling. Why is it so crucial to dig into where these stories come from?
It's essential. The first things to ask when you hear a legend are, where did it come from? Who wrote it down? if anyone did, and when. An account from someone who was there, or close to the time, is way more reliable than something written centuries later, when the legends had time to morph, get exaggerated, maybe even twisted to fit someone's agenda.
So it's about being a historian, checking the facts, seeing if the evidence holds up.
Exactly. Like, are we looking at primary sources, firsthand accounts, or is it just interpretations, retellings, with folklore and imagination mixed in? Knowing the source helps us see the biases, the influences that might have shaped the story. Think about it. A medieval romance about King Arthur is going to be all about chivalry, courtly love, right? That's what mattered back then, not necessarily the reality of 5th century Britain.
And it's not just written stuff either. Your notes on oral traditions, they mention how stories change when they're passed down through generations, just by word of mouth.
Right. Oral traditions are valuable. They tell us about beliefs, memories, but they're also more likely to shift, to adapt with each retelling. Sometimes archaeology can help. Like, you might find some object, some artifact that either backs up a legend or contradicts it. It adds another dimension to the investigation. You really have to look at things from multiple angles.
This has been such a great conversation, a totally new way to look at these amazing stories you sent in. It's not about true or false, it's about what they mean, the human stories at their core.
Absolutely. When we use this kind of framework, these historical myths and legends, they become more than just cool stories. They become windows into human culture, psychology, our need to tell stories and share them. And like you said, we learn something about ourselves along the way.
So, to our listener, think about the myths, the legends that have always fascinated you. Maybe it's one we talked about today, maybe it's a local story from your hometown. Go back to those stories with these new tools, the context, the historical bits versus the fictional bits. What cultural purpose did it serve? Why does it grab you on a psychological level? And always, always question the source.
And remember, this search for understanding, it never really ends. There are always new perspectives, new discoveries. And these legends, even the fantastical ones, they often hold deep truths about what it means to be human.
That's a great point. And on that note, here's something else to ponder. Think about how we retell these ancient myths today in books, movies, even video games. They reflect our values, our anxieties right now. Like, how does the story of a lost city resonate differently now in a time of globalization, climate change? Or how do we reinterpret those classic heroes, those archetypes, and modern superhero stories that are wrestling with, complex moral issues? How do these new versions speak to us today, and what does that say about how adaptable these narratives are, how they transcend their original time and place? Something to think about until our next deep dive. Thanks for listening.